Welcome to you once again in the Department of English, RBNB College, Srirampur. And you are watching a video on the open window. This story is prescribed at F.Y.B.A. General English Paper 1, Semester 1. Now, here is the lesson plan for you. I'll discuss this story into nine different parts. The first part is related to the introduction. And in the introduction, we'll see about the author or short story writer. The second part is about characters in the story. That is major characters and minor characters and their role. While the third part, it is about Frampton Nuttall, who is the hero of this story. He reached at Mrs. Stapleton's house. So the third part relates to it. The fourth part, that is Nuttall, who is the hero of this story. Nuttall meets Vera. The fifth part is about Vera spins a story. Spins means here creates a story through the imagination. The next part is about the open window, why the window is open and what is the story behind it. Okay. The seventh part of this video relates to the hunters came back or returned. The eighth is Vera, the habitual liar, and the ninth part, which is the conclusion. Now let's have to start from the first one, that is introduction. So as I have already explained you, the name of the short story writer is Hector Hughes Munro. Saki is his pen name, and he was born in 1870 and passed on 1916. And 1916 is the period of First World War. Now he is born in Burma, and he is the son of a police officer. He also joined the police department, but later on he left it due to some unavoidable circumstances. And he started his career because his interest was different. He started his career as a journalist, and he also wrote for Westminster Gazette, Daily Express, Morning Post, and Outlook. These are the famous names in the field of daily newspaper in England, and our short story writer worked with those famous newspaper. Then he was died on battlefield of which he joined First World War as a trooper, and unfortunately he was died on the battlefield of First World War. So he is one of the superb short storyteller in English, and he is compared with O. Henry in the last part of video. Our third video is also related to it, that is the work of O. Henry. He was also compared with Dorothy Parker. Means in short we can say the style of Saki is very close to O. Henry and Dorothy Parker. Okay. Then when we read his stories, we find that he depicts the lives and manners of the contemporary people of English. Then he is, we can say, a widely read short story writer in English literature. As far as the present story is concerned, it is one of the most popular short story of Saki. It demonstrates the mischievous sense of humor. Mischievous humor is the part of this story, and the we can say characters in the story. When we study the characters in the story, as in the one of the video we have seen that in the short story, one incident writer has to take and has to select few characters in compare with the novel. As far as this story is concerned, there are two types of characters, that is major characters and minor characters. First, let us have to see the major characters. That is, the first character is Frampton Nuttall, who is the hero of this story, and he is a visitor. Okay, he is mentally disturbed, we can say, nervally disorder. So, what happens with him? Let us have to study in this story. The second important character is, that is Mrs. Sapleton. Our hero goes at her home. Why he visit her home? Let us have to study in this short story. The third important character is, that is Vera, who is the niece of Mrs. Sapleton. Now these are the three major characters in the story. Now I come to the minor characters. What is minor characters? Less important characters. Okay, or we can say secondary characters. And the role of secondary characters, the role of minor characters, the role of less important characters is to develop the main characters. And who are they? The first character, less important character is, that is Mrs. Sapleton's husband. Actually, he never plays a role. Hardly, we can say, there is a very small role he plays. The second less important or minor characters are Mrs. Sapleton's two brothers. The third minor character is here the hero, that is Nuttall's sister. She also plays very minor role. Only she gives later to our hero, that is Nuttall. This is the only role. And the last character, which is an animal, and it is a hunting dog, a small hunting dog. So to conclude the characters, we say that there are three main characters and four minor characters. Now, here the second part of our study ends. That is, introduction is over and characters are over. Now I come to the third point. And what the third point is? Frampton Nuttall at Mrs. Sapleton. So first of all, who is this Frampton Nuttall? That he is the hero of the story. But our hero is suffers of nerve disorder. In short, we can say he is mentally disturbed fellow. Okay, he is mentally disturbed fellow, and he is under treatment of a doctor. But the doctor advises him that you have to go in a country. Here the meaning of country is different. Here the country means a small village. So to become fresh, to become mentally free, you have to visit a small village, say, or we can say country. And what is the aim of it? That is the main aim, to visit the country or the village, that the patient should get rest. Okay. Actually, Frampton Nuttall is doubtful whether the treatment shall help him or not, whether he is mentally cured or not. He has a doubt in mind. So, when we study the characteristics of our hero, first, he is mentally disturbed. or we can say nerve disorder, suffering of nerve disorder. Second thing is that he has no faith on his doctor who is giving treatment to him. But somehow, actually he is afraid because he thinks that he cannot go alone in the village. And he tells the problem to his sister. And then his sister says, don't worry my brother, I'll give you later and visit such and such place, nearby village, nearby country. I lived there for 4 years, so I am acquainted with these people. I know the people in the village, I know the people in the country. They are very good people and they can help you. They can give you room, they can help you in all matters we can see. So I'll give you letter of introduction. And so she hands over the letters to the different people who are the native of that country. Country again here means, country means here village. So she gives letters to him. This is the only role of his sister, okay, because she is the minor character, and she already stayed there in that village as a rectory. So she gives the letter. Now our hero Frampton Nuttall would like to acquainted with the people, and so he takes the letter and directly reach at the house of Mrs. Sapilton. So the first we can say visit he select, it is visit to Mrs. Sapilton. Now he enters at the Mrs. Sapilton's house. But Mrs. Sapilton was not there. She was busy in her work. Okay. So her niece, her 15 years old niece was there. And he was welcomed by, and her name is Vera. So Miss Vera. So Miss Vera greets and welcomes our hero. Or we can say, she decides to entertain the guest until her aunt comes and join the conversation. Okay. Now she notices when she talks with Frampton Nuttall, she notices that this fellow is a stranger to this village because he is unfamiliar with this village. He doesn't know anything about the village, and she asks and verifies it, and then Frampton Nuttall also agrees with it. He says, yes, you are right. For the first time I visit the village. Even I don't know whether Mrs. Sapilton is a married woman or a widow. Okay, so he is completely unknown of the village, and the villagers are the natives. And this talk makes Vera very boring, and so his nature, Frampton Nuttall's nature of overactive imagination and sense of mischief makes her bored. Actually, she is not interested to talk with him because she is bored. Okay. Now, when Vera asks him, do you know about Mrs. Sapilton? And he says, no, I'm going to meet her for the first time. Then she says, then you don't know her tragedy. Now here is the suspense creates. The episode is used to create suspense. And then he says, tragedy? What tragedy? I don't know what tragedy happens with it. And then Vera says, she is mentally weak or mentally disturbed widow. Means through Vera we notice this thing that Mrs. Sapilton is a widow. Widow means what, the lady whose husband is no more, whose husband is died. Okay. So Vera says it. Actually she talks about her aunt. How can a niece say like this? That my aunt is mentally disturbed. But Veera says like this. Because Veera has a habit to create imagination. Okay, later on we are going to, when we study the character sketch of Veera, you notice this thing. Now, she shows, she indicates with her index finger, she indicates towards the open French window. Now, what is this French window? French window, it is a pair of, pair means two, pair of floor length windows. Floor length means it is just like the door. It is floor length. The height starts from the floor up to the some part of the roof. In the same way, the French windows are like this, and that can be open at the middle, just like the door. Means in short, we can say that French window is nothing else but a small door. Okay, according to the height, it is according to height, it is short than the door. So this is the difference. Width and length. There is a difference between width and length when we compared the French window with the door. Nothing else. Here you remember only the window which can have the two parts, just like the door. Okay. And then Veera says, the tragedy takes 3 years ago. And what was the tragedy? That once upon a time, her husband and 2 brothers with a small sapel dog. Sapel dog means the hunting dog. And they went through this window for hunting. Why the window is open? She is giving the reason of it. Because it is a winter season. And so still in the winter season the window is open. Why open? The reason is given here by the dialogue of Veera. And Veera says, why the window is open? Because Mrs. Sapleton's husband with her 2 brothers and a sapel dog goes through this open window for hunting with their gun and a white coat, etc. And she hopes that one day or the other they will we can say come back through this window. So that is why the window is open. Mrs. Sapleton is waiting from 3 years. One day or the other the hunters will come from this or return from this window. And so this is the reason why the window is open. And it opens till the, we can say, dusk. What is dusk? Till evening. So the window is open from morning to evening. Simple meaning of it is. But whether it is true or not, we will study it later on. But she says, unfortunately, the hunters, that is Mrs. Sapleton's husband and her 2 brothers and the sapel dog, they never came back because they were found in the treacherous part of marsh. M-A-R-S-H. Okay, marsh is a place, muddy place, we can say, muddy place. When we go there, perhaps on the geography channel, you might have seen this, that due to the mud, we can say very heavy mud, the people directly goes in the mud and it is difficult for them to come out. Even sometime you have seen that the animals are found in the marsh. And here Veera says, unfortunately, these people, they were engulfed into the treacherous part of the marsh. Even their bodies are never recovered, and that is why the window waits to return those hunters, and this is the reason why the door is open. And due to the grief means here sorrow, due to the grief, due to the loss of husband and two brothers, the aunt, Mrs. Sapilton, is mentally disturbed. Who says it? Miss Vera. Okay, so don't forget the characters here. Actually, this is not true. Actually, this is not happened. It is the imagination of Vera. She creates a picture. Or say, this is the imaginative story. The reality, we will study it later on at the last part of this story. Okay, then Mrs. Sapilton appears in the scene. Means first of all, here, Frampton Nuttall at Mrs. Sapilton's house. Then we studied Nuttall, that is Frampton Nuttall, meets Vera. There was the conversation between Vera and Nuttall. Then Vera spins a story which I have described. That is the story related to the hunters. Okay. Now the next part is the open window. Now some part of the open window we know through the imaginative story of Vera, and the half part of it Mrs. Sapilton is going to describe. First of all, she enters in the scene. She welcomes Frampton Nuttall, and she also apologizes that she is late. That is why she apologizes. And then she asks question to Mr. Nuttall. Are you surprised? Are you surprised why the window is open in the winter? And without waiting for a response, she says why the window is open. And she says, today, her husband, she says, today my husband and my two brothers with a sapel dog, they went for the hunting, and it is time to return them. And so and they usually come through this window, and that is why the window is open. Now what Vera tells us? Vera tells us differently. She says 3 years back they went for the hunting, and they never returned, and they were engulfed in the treacherous marsh. But here Mrs. Sapilton, what she says, they went for hunting today and not before 3 years, and it is their time to return. This is the time to their return. I am waiting for them, and that is why the window is open. So here, about the open window, we have two different stories. Which is correct, which is false, we will learn it at the last part of the story. Okay, now she expects that this is the time to return them, and they might come with the little brown sapien, as they usually come through this window. Actually, she is doubtful about the whether they will be able to we can say kill the birds or not. Okay, actually they went with preparation, with dog and a gun, but she also doubtful whether they get success in it or not, because there was the acute shortage of the birds in the winter season, and she is also doubtful about the prospectus of ducks or future of the ducks. Means in short, she would like to say, though they went for the hunting, she is not hopeful that they get the success and kill the bird and return with the what they have hunted. Okay, so she is doubtful. She has no faith on the we can say capacity of these three people. And when Mrs. Sapilton tells such a kind of story, because the story of Vera is different, the story of Mrs. Sapilton is different. The some part is the similar. Only Vera says they went 3 years before, and while Mrs. Sapilton says they went today. Okay, so our hero Natel, who is under pressure, he is confused. Actually, he is already mentally disturbed and he wants to avoid the subject. So he tries his level best to avoid the subject because he is afraid of all of these things. And so he becomes very bored with the conversation with Mrs. Sapilton, and she wants to divert the subject. He wants to change the subject. And here the part ends. Now the seventh part is related. The hunters returned. The hunters who went for the hunting, that is Mrs. Sapilton's husband and her two brothers and a brown Sapiel dog, they all returned. So through that window, she notices that they are returning, and they are the same people. Her husband, two brothers, the dog. There is also a white coat on the shoulder of her husband, and in the hand there is a gun, and she is sure, yes, they are. And she says to our hero Natel, she says to Frampton Natel, now see whatever I see. Now notice this. Look at from this window. They are returning. It is a time. It is the evening time. It is a time of tea, and they are going to reach in time. Our hero Frampton Natel again becomes mentally disturbed, and because he thinks this is just like the ghost story, GHOST. Okay, so it is just like it, and he is very terrified. He is horrified, and he decides to retract from the house. What is retract? Run away, because he is already, when he reached here, he is already mentally disturbed. This Vera says something. Mrs. Sapilton says something, and it creates confusion in his mind. Again he is mentally disturbed, and he decides to run away from the place to save himself. And without giving any kind of notice, he starts to run away from that place. Then the people who are returning from the returning through the window or from the hunting, they notices this thing. When they reached or when they enter in the house, they ask Mrs. Sapilton, who is that fellow? Why he ran away? What is his name? And he never says thank you. What is the reason behind it? Because as soon as the man enters in the house, Frampton Natel runs away from the house, and it is shocking for these people. So they ask question to Mrs. Sapilton, and Mrs. Sapilton says them that he is mentally disturbed person. Then the people ask him why he ran away from the place. And here Vera gives a very, we can say, explanation which creates humor in the story. And what explanation she has given? That she says, Frampton Nuttall is frightened of a pack of parish dogs. And it was happened in a cemetery on the bank of the Ganga, and he hid himself at night in a newly dug grave. That means to bury the dead body. Okay, newly grave. He hid himself till night. And so he is afraid of the dogs, and when he saw our dog, he ran away. Actually, again, the next point here I cover, and which is Vera is a habitual liar. Actually, such a kind of conversation not taken place in between Vera and Frampton Nuttall. But she adds it with the help of imagination. She is a habitual liar, we can say. Actually, the meaning of Vera is truth. The meaning, just like we have, there is a meaning of in the names. Even our names also have some meaning. Okay, in the same way, the meaning of Vera is truth, and she is the liar. Means in Latin language, the meaning of Vera is truth. But for the second time, first time, the story of the hunters, that is 3 years back, they went for the hunting. This is imaginary story. Then again, the story about Frampton Nuttall is also the imaginative story. Means in Latin language, Vera means truth, but she is a liar, which is the opposite word, which is the antonymous words. Okay, so here we notice how Vera creates the we can say imaginative story in her mind. And here the part number 8 ends, and story even also ends. Now I come to the last part, which is to conclude the story. First of all, the title of the story is apt and suitable, because the open window, the title is the open window. It plays a very vital role in the story, and the whole story moves around this open window. So the title is very apt and suitable. It is the masterpiece of Saki's high comedy. It is, in short, we can say, it is a tale about telling tales. It is a tale, T-A-L-E, about telling, T-L-L-I-N-G, tales, T-A-L-E-S. So here, tale has different meaning, we say. When we study this short story, we understand certain features in it. And what they are? The story is witty one. It has, there is a humor, light humor is used in it. Here we have irony as well as the sarcastic touch of the portrait of the host and the guest. Here, as far as the setting of this short story is concerned, the short story takes place at Mrs. Stapleton's house. Then Vera uses Nuttall's imagination to frighten him, to make him afraid. The story ends with the chase scene, and Natil believes that these three people who just returned from the hunt, they are just like armed ghosts, because in there is a hunt, there is a gun, so he thinks that they are armed, ARMAD, armed ghost. The story is told from third person of narration, and the most important thing in this story, that the story possesses dialogues, the dialogues between Frampton Nuttall and Vera, the dialogue between Mrs. Sapilton and our hero, that is Frampton Nuttall, which creates interest in the story. The story has also suspense. So suspense suspense is created through the story about the open window. So I think this is one of the best short story in English literature. I hope you like my video. If you have some suggestions, write in the comment box. Thanks to spare time with me.